Hey kids, it's Jurassic James with Transcript Planes. We're looking at Kryptops, Kryptops. I've heard different pronunciations. So today will be a primarily Jurassic World based talk because they keep coming out with really, really obscure specimen or animals. So here we go. Same will apply. The oldest one here, newest one here, I only have one, so that's why we're talking about it. But this is another Abelisaur. And I'm actually surprised because, I mean, these are things I read about in papers. I see them in reconstructions of prehistoric environments. So even though it's Jurassic World and the toys are not scientifically accurate, they're still coming out with a lot of unusual species. So, I mean, I know some of you guys love scientific models, but for me, it's like, wow, a new species. It's super exciting. It's like catching a new Pokemon, I guess. Okay, so real quick, official scissors, Jurassic James. We will free the beast. And I'll tell you why it matters, where it's from, and who it's related to. Let's see. Super easy. Barely inconvenience. Nate quoting the... Oh, where's it? Oh, okay. Just a second. This is going to be great for audio. Just listen up, kids. So, as all these things go, you plug the tail in. There's spikes along the... Fun. So just in general, looking at this thing, when I first saw it, what's really fun is that how can I say this? Not because they're Jurassic Park figures, I can't specifically know the species sometimes, but I looked at it and said, oh, it's an Abelisaur clearly, because obviously. Now, discovered especially in 2000 and published in 2008. So again, think about this. The paleontologist goes out, they're looking around, they're digging, they're collecting things. This is even after they've probably scouted and raised funds. They dig it up in 2008. We have a paper written. And so the idea here is that looking at this animal, you're saying, well, what did they find? They found a part of the maxima, this part right here. They found the sacrum, hip bones, some backbones, and ribs. This guy was found in Niger, Africa. And what's really cool about that is that it is... you know how some people are completionists when they collect things, they want to complete the whole collection. So in Niger, Africa, which everything I have as side pieces here, I have done a video on. It's getting to the point where I'm realizing, wow, I've already done a video on that a lot, actually. So this guy is living with the famous Suchomimus, which is a Spinosaurus cousin, the Eocacaria, which is a ancestor or at least relative of Carcharodontosaurus, which is the other large predator found in North Africa. Now, these guys are early Cretaceous. When you think about North Africa, people often think of Spinosaurus and Carcharodontosaurus and so on. Those are late Cretaceous. So this is like their predecessors in a sense. The Tyrannosaurus, the relative of the Hadrosaur, the duckbill, that kind of group. Not a duckbill, not a Hadrosaur, but it's in that lineage of ornithopod. Nigersaurus, the most famous sauropod from that region, and of course Suchosarcus, that crocodile thing the crocodile-like thing, not actual crocodile, that kids love to talk about all the time. Trust me, I know that from experience. And so this guy is from that environment. And there are many depictions of the environment. There are many papers written about this. There's things in more in the pop culture. It's a very famous time period in region. And so to have another top animal from this area is really impressive. Now, what's really neat about this is, okay, so we're looking at Niger, Africa in the early Cretaceous period. And you have Suchomimus, who can eat red meat, but also eats a lot of fish. Eocacaria seems to be probably one of the more dominant animals on land. This guy, I'm 5'10", if I were standing up and looking at it head on, it would probably be almost where his eyes were there. It's not a very tall dinosaur. And so I often refer to Abelisaurs as the hyenas of their time. And I found out that the description about this animal was written by Paul Sereno, who I met last year. Yay. And also Steve, I have trouble saying his name. I want to say Steve Bruschetti. That's an actor. Steve Bruschetti is a paleontologist who does a lot of books and things and digs and papers. He's one of the stars of paleontology right now. And so they both describe this animal. So those are two top names really known with this animal. And he refers it as a hyena-like animal, which is oh, great, because I always say that automatically. So for me personally, it's kind of cool when I have an idea and then other paleontologists say yeah, like this. I'm great. And so what I'm saying by that is in Africa, lions are considered the top predator. They're the biggest predator, right? And the hyenas are secondary to them. Well, in the sense that these guys are bigger predators, and Kryptops is a little bit secondary to them. But again, Abelisaurs in general often play that second role in most of their environments. So hitting that enough on that, I'm going to go over the animal itself. So it is a carnivore. We can tell that. No one questions that, right? It's found in early Cretaceous period in Niger, Africa. This guy was, like I said, they didn't find the entire skeleton, which is very common in paleontology. And there is a question about the part they found here, the premaxillary, because the name Cryptosaurus means covered face, and there seems to have been like a keratinous growth in there. So imagine, for example, a triceratops horn or a certain texture there that implies that kind of a covering made of protein. So the same thing's been applied to this animal. So there are hypotheses or theories saying that maybe this animal is scavenging like a vulture, and when vultures, for example, many of them will have like bald heads around like feathers on their face. So I always ask kids, if you're eating cereal with a spoon, is your spoon made of plastic or metal? And they go, yeah. What if your spoon was very fuzzy? And I go, what do you mean? Like, imagine eating, like those fuzzy pillows and eating cereal with a spoon made of that. That would be gross, right? And they're like, yeah, it's gross. So the idea here is that this guy, it's been theorized that has like this kind of keratin kind of cleaned up face that can root around in the carcasses of its food. So I'm not saying it wouldn't hunt, given that but it has bigger animals that are hunting and killing things. So obviously it would hunt smaller things. And there are smaller dinosaurs and turtles and fish from this environment known too. There's just no toys of them. So here, as far as the big guys in this environment, they're all depicted here in Jurassic World. So that's kind of its job and role. Now, there are paleontologists who about 4 years later said, well, maybe given how far away the premaxillary was discovered from the actual hip and sacrum, this part of the body, fossilized, that it may be from a different animal. They actually think it may be from a Eocarcharia or one of its relatives. And so one thing about paleontology, I mention all the time, is the idea of taxonomy, the idea that between dying and fossilization, what happened to the animal. And in many of my videos, I mentioned that with certain specimen where it got, what we call bloated and floated, bloated up, floated down river. Sometimes it gets scavenged, sometimes parts just eroded away. And so that's a big part of paleontology as well. But in this case, they were like 15 meters apart, so it's pretty distance for these two parts. So they are arguing that point. So I always say, look to the future, find more specimen, etc. Now, I keep saying Abelisaur, and it got to a point where I am mentioning a lot that there are a lot of Abelisaur figures in the Jurassic World line. And on the one hand, I'm like, cool, but also it's interesting that it's cool because we wouldn't get Abelisaurs normally, so that's awesome. But also it's interesting because they are a pretty well-known group at this point. And if you don't know at this point, I'm going to tell you again, what is an Abelisaurus? In the late Jurassic period, in what we now call North America and Tanzania, Africa, there are things called ceratosaurs. So in the predatory dinosaur theropod group, most of what you're thinking about of dinosaur eaters are going to be like the raptors, the T-Rexes, the Allosaurs. That's a different branch. The ceratosaurid and their descendants, the Abelisaurs, those branch off earlier on in the family tree of life. And so ceratosaurus is the kind of like this really well-known, well-documented animal, right? And it lived in the late Jurassic North America and Tanzania, Africa. Well, in Cretaceous period, we have these things called Abelisaurs. And so, interesting enough, there's one called Abelisaurus. There's no toy of that, but we have all these other guys. So what's really neat about our guy Kryptops here, it is the oldest member of Abelisaurus. I wouldn't say the first. It's the oldest one in Africa. There are some other contenders around the world that are being debated, but I think Paul Sereno and Richard thought, no, this guy is definitely the oldest one, given his features in the anatomy of it. So it's kind of like the grandpa of the Abelisaur. So why are they so important? Niger, Africa, we have Majungasaurus from Madagascar, which I've talked about that twice. We have Scorpio venator, who live with Argentinosaurus from South America. We have Rajasaurus from India. We have Quilmesaurus, also from South America. And we have, of course, the Rugops from Africa, but again, where this guy lives in early Cretaceous, this is late Cretaceous. This one is, I think, in my opinion, one of the worst dinosaur models of the Jurassic World line. I'm always complaining about the tails being too small, but this is like a rat tail. And also the fingers, they have 2 fingers, which I didn't mention earlier. This guy has 3. And so Abelisaurs are unique or special because they have, well, they're like Tyrannosaurs in that they have really short faces and they have really tiny arms. But unlike Tyrannosaurs, their arms are actually smaller in proportion to their bodies than Tyrannosaurs. And so the toys here have very long arms, actually, which were inaccurate. But they often have 4 digits, 4 fingers. This one only has 2, which is why I did a video on this one, and it was so upsetting. I just didn't even upload it. It was just, I don't know why. It's not the animal's fault. It's the figure that was made poorly, and they won't even stand. Look at this. This is just ridiculous. Anyway. Focus, James. The most famous Abelisaur of all is Carnotaurus. This is I'm using the Hammond collection version, and this one even now the arms are still too big, but what's ironic about this is that Carnotaurus is the most famous Abelisaur, yet it is the most unique Abelisaur. These guys all, except for Magungasaurus, because we don't have any proof yet, but these all had some kind of Carnotaurus thing, Giganotosaurus, something like that, or Abelisaurus, who was a higher predator of the environment usually. If we don't have it by name, we have like parts of it to suggest there are Carnotaurs there. Except for Carnotaurus, where it's living, it's like the Carnotaurs are dying out. So Carnotaurus is unique because it has very long legs. So it is one of the fastest dinosaurs in its class. The fastest, we believe, are the ostrich dinosaurs, like the Gallimimus, those guys. But given the length of the legs, the shape of the body, all that, it's implied to be pretty quickly. Again, we didn't find footprints to measure and see that. We're just saying, given the proportions of the body, it should be pretty quick. So with our guy here, there were no legs found. There were no fingers found. So I can say that I think these 3 fingers are wrong. And what I mean by that is, even though we don't have a hand, and obviously finding a hand would fix this, but the Abelisaurs have 4 digits. The Ceratosaurs have 4 digits. Most of the predatory dinosaurs have 3 or less. They usually lose them over time, right? And again, they lose them going in. So the ancestors of theropods happen to be 5 digits. Then we see some with 4 in the early Jurassic, late Triassic. Then we see 3 usually, even 2 in some cases. And so the Abelisaurs, they kept the 4 fingers. Even though they're very, very tiny, even though the 4th one is really small, they would not be large, clawed, things like this. This would be unusual. You're saying, well, James, if they're earliest members of this group, maybe it did, but their predecessors would have had 4 anyway. So you wouldn't go from 3 to 4 again. That's really unusual in that sense. So 3 fingers to 4 fingers. So that's something that kind of, I know this is like, I'm literally nitpicking here, this idea of what's this and that. But the idea is that looking at these 3 big clawed fingers is like, no, because even the guys here, they have, like the Magungasaurus has the 4 little tiny fingers there. There shouldn't be claws on all of them, but whatever. But overall, it's a pretty cool model. And more important than its lineage, I mean, that's obviously neat to see so many of a group of dinosaurs called Abelisaurs. I mean, kids know Carnotaurus. Kids know the Spinosaurus family, the T-Rex family, the Raptor family. This toy line is making kids know the Abelisaur family, and they're an important part of the environment, so I give them credit for that. But what's really important to me, of course, with this specimen is that it is a part of a really cool ecology. And what's really neat about that for me personally is that, I mean, kids like Jurassic Park, where you see dinosaurs from different time periods and environments crammed together. But as I collect the collection, if you can't see it in the video, it's like all along here and the wall and all that. And so for me, it's cool to have the entire set, or at least the represented members of a group together. So when I'm talking about paleo environments, I can say these things live together. This guy is the main top predator, secondary predator, not to scale. This is eating mainly fish. And we see fish in the environment too. We have crocoid things. That's really cool to me as an adult paleontology toy dinosaur collector. Very specific niche there. Anyway, Kryptosaurus, appreciate them, love them. I'm pretty sure if it's not, I mean, I would say look online, try to find if one of the high-end companies like PNSO made a model of it. Some companies do unusually rare specimen here and there. I notice a lot of those companies do a lot of Tyrannosaurs, but still, look for it. Cool animal. Oh, right, it does that. Right, toy review. Right, the DNA code is there. The tail's like rubbery. There's 3 toes pointing forward and a dew claw pointing back. Very standard. All. There was no skin found, so this is all interpretation there. But again, the Abelisaurs are known for their short, blunted, like bulldog noses. And with that being said, I will see you next week. I don't want to talk any more about this because there's other things to talk about. We need to get to the other videos.